Robert Biggs stepped out of his old pickup truck at 6 o'clock in the morning. Fog covered the Whiskeytown Valley like a cloudy white shroud. He took a long breath. The smell of pine, damp earth, and decaying leaves. It was the scent he had known well through 40 years of walking in the woods. At 69 years old, Robert still kept the habit of hiking at least twice a week. He knew every bend along the Whiskey Flats Trail, knew where tree roots rose out of the ground, and where the rocks became slippery after rain. His wife often said,
"You spend more time in the woods than you do at the grocery store."
He could not explain why he needed that forest. Perhaps because there, he was not a 69-year-old man with aching knees whenever the weather turned cold. There he was simply one living creature, moving among millions of other living creatures. On the morning of March 26, 2012, Robert set out just as he always did. A light backpack, one bottle of water, a granola bar, and a small folding knife in his pants pocket. Nothing was unusual. He had walked about 2 miles when the trail began to curve along the hillside. Sunlight pierced through the canopy, scattering golden spots across the ground. A woodpecker was pecking at the trunk of an oak tree overhead. Robert stopped, looked up, and smiled. Then he heard a sound. It was not a loud sound, just the snap of a dry branch, the rustle of leaves, but heavier than usual. Robert stood still. 40 years of experience in the woods had taught him one thing. When you hear an unusual sound, do not move. Identify the source first. He looked down the slope about 30 meters from where he was standing. His heart skipped a beat. A black bear was standing in the middle of an open patch of ground. Large. Its black fur gleamed under the sunlight. And right beside it, 2 cubs, each only about the size of his backpack. Robert held his breath. Anyone who had ever spent time in the woods in California knew this rule. If you encounter a black bear, keep your distance. If you encounter a mother bear with cubs, disappear immediately. A mother bear protects her young with one of the most ruthless instincts in nature. There are no exceptions. No negotiation. He slowly stepped back and pressed himself against a large rock by the trail. From this position, he could watch the bears without being noticed. The rock concealed most of his body, leaving only his head and shoulders exposed. The mother bear was feeding her cubs. The 2 cubs milled around at her feet, occasionally nudging each other with their snouts. The mother bear licked one cub's head, then lifted her head and sniffed the air. Her wet, black nose twitched. Robert watched, captivated. In 40 years of walking in the woods, he had seen bears many times, but rarely had he been able to witness a mother bear caring for her cubs from this close. Robert leaned his back against the rock and breathed slowly. At first, he watched the bears with the quiet fascination of a man who had loved the forest for nearly his entire life. The 2 cubs lingered around their mother's feet, while the mother lowered her head and gently licked one of them on top of the head. Then she froze. Her black head snapped up. Her nose trembled sharply in the air. Robert stopped breathing. The wind was almost completely still, only now and then a very faint, cold current creeping down from the hillside. The forest was so silent that he could hear his own heartbeat pounding inside his chest. The mother bear did not roar. She did not charge. She simply stood motionless, her body tense, her ears alert as if searching for the faintest sound in the forest. One of the cubs sensed the change It stopped playing and pressed itself tightly against its mother's belly. Then the mother bear took one step forward, slow, heavy. Her front paw pressed down onto the layer of dry leaves, making a very soft crack, but it was enough to make Robert's throat tighten. He pressed his back harder against the rock. The mother bear took another step. She was not running. She was not aggressive. It was that slowness that frightened Robert even more. An animal like that did not need to hurry. If she decided to charge, that 30-meter distance would disappear in a matter of seconds. Robert felt a chill run down his spine. He thought the bear had caught his scent. But something did not fit. The mother bear's gaze did not stop at the rock where he was hiding. It went past him, higher, farther, as if behind Robert there was something else he could not see. The mother bear took another half step, then stopped. A very low growl came from her throat. That sound did not resemble a threat meant for a hum. Robert had no idea that 15 minutes earlier, another pair of eyes had already been watching the open patch of ground below. They were not human eyes. They were the eyes of a predator. The mountain lion was lying on a rock about 10 meters behind Robert and higher up the slope. It had been there before he arrived. Its tawny brown fur blended perfectly with the color of the rock and the dry leaves. Its long tail lay across the stone, the tip moving slightly, the only sign that it was alive. Mountain lions are masters of ambush. Unlike African lions that hunt in prides across open plains, mountain lions hunt alone, in absolute silence. They do not chase their prey. They wait. They watch. And when the moment comes, they attack from behind, always from behind, aiming for the back of the neck or the throat. This mountain lion had been watching the bear cubs since early morning. The two cubs, each weighing less than 15 kilograms, were an ideal meal. The only problem was the mother bear. A full-grown female black bear, weighing about 120 kilograms, powerful enough to tear apart any mountain lion in a direct confrontation. But then, Robert appeared. The mountain lion changed its plan. Instead of risking an attack on the cubs under the mother bear's watch, it shifted to an easier target, a human sitting motionless, with his back turned toward it, completely unaware. It slipped down from the rock, without a sound. Its 4 paws touched the ground as softly as falling leaves. 10 meters, 8 meters, 5 meters. Robert was still watching the bears. 3 meters. The mountain lion lowered its body, its hind legs coiling like springs. Then it leapt. 70 kilograms of muscle slammed into Robert Biggs's back. He fell face down to the ground, his face striking rock. Before he could understand what had happened, he felt claws tearing through his jacket and sinking deep into his right arm. Jaws clamped tightly onto the backpack on his back. If not for that backpack, the fangs would have gone straight into his neck. His survival instinct exploded. Robert twisted his body and punched the mountain lion's head over and over with his left arm. It did not let go. He tried to pull out the folding knife from his pants pocket, but his right arm was numb with pain. He screamed, trying to make the loudest noise he could. A trick he had read somewhere. Mountain lions hate noise. But this animal was not afraid. It tightened its jaws and dragged him across the ground. Robert thought of his wife, thought of the familiar trail he had walked thousands of times, thought that this might be the last time. Then the ground shook. A sound ripped through the forest, a roar. Raw, heavy, violent enough that both Robert and the mountain lion froze for a fraction of a second. The mother bear. The black bear charged up the hillside with terrifying speed. 120 kilograms of muscle and bone, driven by the most primal instinct on Earth, the instinct to protect her young. But the mother bear was not charging toward Robert. She was charging straight at the mountain lion. Because in the mother bear's survival calculus, there was no concept of saving a human. There was only one simple equation. This mountain lion was the predator that had been stalking her cubs. That predator was here. That predator had to be destroyed. The mountain lion released Robert immediately. It turned to face the mother bear and was struck at once by a blow to the ribs as heavy as a sledgehammer. Bare claws, as long as a human finger and hard as steel, tore a long gash across its golden fur. The mountain lion snarled and lunged, biting into the bear's shoulder. The mother bear roared, wrapped her two front legs around the lion, squeezed hard, then slammed it to the ground. Dust exploded into the air. Dry leaves flew everywhere. The roars, the sound of claws scraping against rock, everything merged into a wild symphony. The fight lasted less than a minute. The mountain lion jerked itself away from the mother bear and staggered backward. It looked at the black bear rising to her feet, fur bristling, eyes blazing red. Then it turned and ran, without looking back. Robert Biggs lay on the ground, gasping for breath. Blood flowed from both of his arms, staining his jacket red. The backpack on his back had been torn open, but it was what had saved his life. The mountain lion's jaws had sunk into the fabric and aluminum frame instead of into his spine. He sat up, trembling. The mother bear stood less than 5 meters away from him. Huge, jet black. Her small eyes looked at him, not with hostility, but not with friendliness either. It was simply the gaze of an animal judging whether the thing in front of her was a threat or not. Robert did not move. He knew that right now, his life was still in the hands of that mother bear. If she decided he was a danger to her cubs, he would not get a second chance. 3 seconds passed. 5 seconds. 10 seconds. The mother bear snorted once. Then she turned her head and slowly walked down the hillside toward the 2 cubs huddled beneath the oak tree. Robert watched her go. The mother bear reached her cubs, lowered her body, and licked each of them on the head. The 2 cubs pressed themselves against their mother's belly, trembling. The mother bear lifted her head once more and looked toward Robert. Then she led her cubs into the deep forest, without looking back. Robert Biggs stood up. His legs were shaking, but he could still walk. He followed the trail back, his right arm pressed tightly against his chest to stop the bleeding, his left hand gripping tree trunks to keep his balance. The 2 miles back to the parking area had never felt so long. He drove home before going to the hospital. When his wife saw the blood on his jacket, she nearly fainted.
I'm okay. Just a cat scratch.
At the hospital, doctors put 11 stitches in both of his arms. None of the wounds were life-threatening. When reporters asked him how he felt, Robert Biggs stayed silent for a long time. Then he said, "I'm not angry at the mountain lion. It was hungry. It did what its instincts told it to do. And the mother bear did the same. She didn't save me. She protected her cubs. I just happened to benefit from that." He stopped and looked out the hospital window. In the distance, Mount Shasta was covered in white snow beneath the afternoon light. After 40 years of walking in the woods, I learned one thing, he said. In nature, there are no heroes, and there are no villains. There are only living creatures trying to survive. And today, I was just one of them. Robert Biggs continued hiking in Whiskeytown after the attack. He did not change his route. He did not carry a weapon. He only added one new habit. Every now and then, he looked back over his shoulder.